Yeah, your election headquarters, we're keeping our eyes on that internal race of the New Patriotic Party. On the polls today, we welcome former MP for Mampong, Francis Addai-Nimoh, who has set sights on the highest office in the land. An engineer by profession, Mr. Addai-Nimoh brings a wealth of experience and, of course, passion to his bid for the flag bearership position of the New Patriotic Party. Well, join us as we delve into his plans for what he terms a better future for the country, and hear directly from the man himself who has ambitions to become the next president of the land. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And it's good to see you returning at a time when, of course, you've made that clearly to us that, of course, now is the time you're going all out. You want to become president. Last time I asked you, you were not too sure. You said, well, if the party wants me to serve, I will serve. Now you say you are the best person to represent the NPP. Why?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, let me extend my appreciation to Joy News for the coverage, the live coverage that was granted to my official announcement to seek the leadership nomination of the NPP last week. Right. So I commend Joy News for that. Well, sometime last year, I was with you in this studio, and the question was posed to me, will you seek the leadership nomination? And I said, let's give ourselves some time. Right. Because I was doing more and more consultations with people, with friends, with family members, with all kinds of people. And finally, I've come to that conclusion. And last week, Wednesday, I did not hide, I did not mince words, but I was emphatic that at the opening of nomination of the New Patriotic Party, Francis Addai-Nimoh will seek the leadership nomination of the party. Well, now, the party has been in government, and this is the 7th year, and I am championing the cause for a fresh, new face.
That's how you describe it?
That is how I describe it, to lead the party. And the premise for which I'm championing this cause is that, I mean, there is always the tendency for facial fatigue once you have stayed on for a certain number of years. So people have listened to you, people have interacted with you. At the point they will ask the basic question, so what again? And that is why sometimes you take a departure and then you reactivate and then you come back. Now, the historical fact we have politically in the country is that from 1993, under the Fourth Republic, the two dominant parties, none has been able to go beyond 8 years. And therefore, in the year 2000, when the then sitting Vice President Atta Mills was a candidate again for NDC, he could not break the 8. Then come 2008, when the current president, Nana Akufo-Addo, was a minister in J. Kufuor's administration after NPP 8 years, he became our candidate. Right. Then we could also not break the 8. 2016, sitting President John Mahama also could not make it. So it should tell us that that is the pattern. And so the party should learn from that and say that let us take a departure from it.
And here's where your critics blame you. They say, well, it was intentional. And for instance, it's part of the reasons why you didn't want to serve in President Akufo-Addo's administration. You knew very well that, well, we'll get to this point where there'll be a new search for a new face for the party. So it was a political strategy from your part. No,
not at all, Blessed. And for your viewers, your cherished viewers, not at all. Because what was the offer that was given to me for appointment in this administration? And people said I was offered a position as road fund administrator. And I have questioned that. In law, do we have such a position? And the answer is no. So that position in the first place doesn't exist. So how could I occupy such a position in the public sector, knowing that the public sector is regulated by legal framework? And so for every position, it must be backed by either the Constitution or by...
So that's why you turned that down?
Well, I drew the attention of the appointing authority. I drew the attention of the appointing authority. And Blessed, you know what? Granted that Addai-Nimoh declined, who occupied that position or who is occupying that position now?
Right.
There is no occupant of that position. And so it reinforces my understanding that, yes, there couldn't have been an offer and a rejection.
Okay, that granted. That aside, we know that you're not the only one in the race.
Sure.
There are about 9 other names that we're hearing. And even if you take, well, the likes of the Vice President, Alan Chermating, their Greek minister, you still have a couple of individuals there that have not fairly, I mean, to say, not served in government. They've not been, well, that frontline individual for the NPP. So they fall within the same category of your description for a new phase.
Not really.
Why should Francis Addai-Nimoh be that option, the one standing out of that pack?
Not really. The other individuals whose names we are hearing. As at now, the race hasn't begun. So we are all expressing our interest. The other individuals, let me say, Honorable Joe Gate was a former Minister for Railway Development, and then Honorable Boache Jakun was a former Minister for Energy. Honorable Kennedy Japan,
yes.
He's the board chairman for Ghana Gas.
Okay, he's still you're finding a way to still link him, link him to the government.
And he's also not only Ghana Gas as board chairman, but also a board member for Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority, which used to be called Town and Country Planning Department. So he is there. Dr. Kofi Kunodo-Apreku
was out of the country.
Not directly involved, but he needed the backing of his home government to be a commissioner at the ECOWAS Secretariat.
Right.
So the only person, which we, together with me, is my brother, the former General Secretary, Kwabena J. Japan, Engineer Kwabena J. Japan. And the two of us are all civil engineers.
Interesting.
Yes, and the two of us have not served in this administration. And so we are calling for the fresh face because of the historical fact, you know, and it is clear there's certainly going to be facial fatigue. And so those who want to criticize me must criticize me on the facts that I am touting. Are those facts there? If they are not there, then you can't take me on that, look, Addai-Nimoh, we disagree with you. But for now, that is it. The new phase comes with a fresh appeal. You know, it comes with a fresh appeal. It comes to revitalize, to revive, and rejuvenate the membership of the rank and file of the party. Right now, we need to maximize our internal strength for 2024. So long as we are determined as a party to break the age. And you know, in life, if you want to set a record, you have got to be sober, you have got to be calm, you have got to be very detailed and meticulous and strategic in all that you do, so that at the end you cause a surprise.
And that's why you're calling for the new phase. But how then, and I'm just wondering, how then will you account for, if we should call it, the sins of the past? Your administration, and by extension I'm talking about the New Patriotic Party administration, may have had some downsides. You're not solely going to be campaigning if they give you the nod without looking at some of the track records, the gains of the NPP administration in the past. So who would then account for some of these issues if indeed we are to go for that new phase that you're calling for?
No, I mean, certainly you are going to campaign on the record of a previous administration of J.A. Kufuor, campaign on the record of the current administration of Nana Akufo-Addo, and then what the future you have for the country.
So if you've not been part of it, how do you account for it then?
Well, I mean, you have to speak to the issues. Those which are positive issues, you speak to them. Those which you think could have been done in a different way, where you need to admit that there have been some unpleasant or shortfalls, you would have to speak to those things and admit. After all, it is a family. And in a family, we cover one another. We try to stay together. You don't isolate yourself or dissociate yourself from that. But then, you as the new leader, you come up with your own appeal in terms of unblemishedness of your track record, in terms of your ability to endear yourself to the people. that, look, yes, the administration has done so much. There's also the possibility to improve upon it. Areas that we have not covered, let us see how we can. Let's take, for instance, free senior high school education. All of us, it is our desire that every child, every person born in Ghana should enter school and be able to have education to the minimum level of senior high school. So that is the desire of all of us. And the question will be, how do we ensure a sustained funding for it whilst ensuring the quality of our educational standards? Right. These are the two things. So if we need to look at the funding aspect and it is problematic to government and to the state, we talk to Ghanaians and call on people who have the capacity or the ability or can afford to pay for their wards or their children. And those who cannot, we address the situation.
Okay, we'll talk about that new direction and why you feel you should be the one leading that charge. But before we get there, one of your counterparts, your colleagues who's also in this race, the former trades minister, has made a statement that sparked a lot of controversy. The fact that by the next elections in 2024, you may have some difficulties as the governing party crafting a campaign message. He's of the opinion that you may have some difficulties there.
Well,
you side with him on that?
No, I would disagree. I would disagree. We are not there yet. We still have about 22 months to the next general
but the facts are there, that the economy is not well.
Yes,
some
agreed.
Things are not okay with the economy.
Admittedly, the economy is not doing well. There are challenges because of the heavy debt on our neck. But government is taking steps to address it. And that is why the domestic debt exchange program, government is working on it, which closed yesterday. Right. We also have our external debt servicing program that we have to do. And government is talking to IMF for injection of about $3 billion US dollars into the economy. Blessed, and for your cherished viewers, who can predict what will happen by the close of the year? Maybe by the close of the year, the economic situation will improve. It improves up to the first quarter of next year, up to the second quarter of next year. How long does it take to craft a campaign message? Overnight, within a twinkle of an eye?
Are you then saying you're hopeful that the economy will turn around by 2024?
Sure, I am hopeful that there will be some improvement in the economy in terms of the macroeconomic indicators, inflation, CD, exchange rate, interest rate. I'm hoping.
Are you not being overly ambitious? Because all the predictions from the IMF, a growth rate somewhere hovering around 2%.
Yes.
The IMF policy is just taking off. Some say everything may come to perfection by the time we're done with the IMF conditionality, which is much more beyond 2 years. So are you not overly ambitious?
No, we are not. And I'm sure that President Akufo-Addo knows that we have elections ahead of us. So government expenditure will also have to be scrutinized into details. Unnecessary expenditures will have to be avoided so that we can have some savings and then put those monies into other productive ventures of the economy. And so it is possible. Yes, it cannot be achieved maybe within the next 6 months, 3 months, 9 months. But there can be a gradual improvement. And so if there's a gradual improvement and prices have stabilized, the living standards of people are beginning to improve, the cost of living is beginning to go down for people, the value for money, then why not? Why can't you craft a message that, look, we have been able to turn the economy around in this shortest possible time by this percentage? And that will be
so you may have a message by then.
We will have a message.
For you,
for that statement, I certainly disagree.
You disagree with him. But by then, your party may have been done with the internal process of selecting the next leader. So given the fact that, well, you're also standing, you stand that chance of being elected. If by then you are the one leading the New Patriotic Party, what message will you be selling to the people of Ghana? What's on your heart that you feel, well, this is where we are in 2024. This is where I want to take the country to in the next 4 years after that?
Well, I'll make reference to my 7-point policy development that I outlined last week's Wednesday. And the first one is on agriculture, because as a people, we should be able to feed ourselves. So we should focus on agriculture and achieve food sufficiency and food security. And then the slogan will be that no Ghanaian should go to bed, to work, or to school hungry.
Okay.
So we should be able to produce enough to cover our carbohydrate needs, our protein needs, and then our vitamins and mineral needs as a people. Having secured that, then your health and your education, these two social sectors are crucial for the development of every individual. So we will also focus on health and education. And in terms of health, my thinking and policy direction will be, it's better to prevent than to cure.
Okay.
So we'll go for
preventive health.
Preventive measures. If we can prevent the occurrence of malaria, why don't we take appropriate action to prevent it from occurring? Then we can save some monies that we have to use to import drugs into the country for the treatment of malaria. That is just an example. So prevention approach to healthcare service delivery will be focused on much more than going for the curative aspect of healthcare delivery services. Then education.
I'm interested in that.
In education, we need to look at technical, vocational, and skills training. That should be able to help most of the youth to put themselves into, productive ventures for themselves, you know. And a typical example is Japan, after World War II, was destroyed. Hiroshima, the capital, was destroyed, and Nagasaki was also destroyed. But through technical, vocational skills and training, they were able to come up. And today, they are forced to reckon with in technology. And look at the auto industry. Not only the auto industry, most sectors of the world economy, they are playing very key role. So that is one area. If we have achieved free senior high school education, then the attention now will focus on technical.
I'm glad that you're mentioning the free senior high school policy because there are varied opinions on that. Some experts are saying, let's review, let's allow parents who are able to afford, pay something, and we're able to make up for the losses and some of the challenges that are confronting the senior high schools now. What's your assessment of that policy measure? And having run that for over 5 years now, its concurrent drain on the budget and all that it comes with, what should we be revising about the policy?
Well, that is why I made a point. You know, I talked about the sustainability, having a sustained funding for it, and then the quality. So the policy to have all school-age people to reach senior high school level, I agree with it. So some parents are capable of affording to pay for their wards. Why don't we allow them? So in reviewing it, it's just on the funding issue, and then in terms of the quality of education that we also will receive. And this, I'll agree with what some time ago Ken Oforiatta said.
The finance minister.
Yes, what he said, that if he has the ability to afford to pay, why wouldn't he pay? And so we have to look at it. And it's about communicating.
The biggest political selling point, the fact that the NPP claims ownership over the policy, and most of the time when you go on any of the campaign platforms, that's what you sell first to the people, that we have delivered free senior high school. And when we say it's free, it's free. That's what you told the people.
Yes.
But would they forgive you if you change anything?
No, we are not changing. The policy is there, but we are saying that it's the funding. So if the funding is problematic, why don't we talk to our own citizens? Because we are all Ghanaians, and we all agree that we should have such an educational policy. So at this time, the funding is somehow unsustainable or problematic to government. It affects other sectors of the economy. So why don't you call on parents who have the capacity to support government to deliver on that? I think that is as simple as that. So besides, let me go on with the 7th point. Besides the health and education, then you have to look at employment and entrepreneurship. And within the youthful group, people are looking for employment. So the measures that will be taken where people can do their private work or they can work for private companies, as in the case of your good self, you are multimedia, or at a point you may decide to work for yourself, or you work for a government institution. So with these 3 categories, and we know that the public sector is always limited in terms of employment. So the policy on how to expand the economy for the private sector to thrive and absorb the many, many young ones who will be coming out of tertiary institutions and other institutions so that they can have jobs. But we also will have to urge the young people that they can also work for themselves. And the training that they will receive alongside will help.
When your flyer went out, I received a message from some of the beneficiaries of NAPCO. And I wish I could read that message out, but let me just paraphrase what it says. They want to know what the future holds for all of these 100,000 youth who are now very unsure and certain about what the future of that policy would be. What plans do you have for instance, some intermediate interventions in creating jobs for the youth, looking at what's happened to NAPCO, YEA, and some of the NYA programs as well?
Well, I would say that we would have to see how some of them can receive training in terms of technical, vocational, and skills acquisition. And then they can begin to do something for themselves. And then we must also encourage some of them that farming is also lucrative. But most often we assume that if you are a farmer, then it is not lucrative. Myself sitting here today, every year I try to do some acreage of maize farm, you know. And therefore, the youth must be encouraged. They must be told that looking for a job is not only the white collar job, where I get up in the morning, take my shower, put on my clothing, if I'm a lady with my skirt blouse and a bag, if I'm a young man with my tie, and I'm off to work to sit behind the table, and this paper comes and that, no. You know, our economy too has a very huge informal sector. And there's so much money in the informal sector. So the training that we will offer to the young ones, the exposure that we will offer to them, some will realize that yes, there are other ventures that they can enter into, be productive, and then they can take good care of themselves, and they even can become employers. They can also become employers. So that is the 4th point. The 5th one, we need to enhance on our infrastructure development. Roads, water systems, bridges, telecommunication, energy. And then one important thing is the maintenance culture. Our ability as a people to maintain public infrastructure so that they do not deteriorate as fast as possible after they have been constructed. Then the last point will be our ability to complete all abandoned projects.
You'll be doing that?
Sure. Because these are projects which have been abandoned, which governments from when have spent a lot of money into it, investment, and they have not been completed, and they are not being made useful to the citizens of this country. Then why did you go into it?
You feel it's a waste of public funds?
Yes, and we need to complete all such projects so that they become useful to the citizens.
And I'm sure that you're heavy on infrastructure because this is where your expertise comes to play. There are 2 outstanding issues. We're just earlier announcing that we'll be talking about the Accra-Tema motorway. You've seen the original plan for it. It's no longer a motorway in the opinion of some experts as well. What should we be doing about the redesigning of that facility?
Right now, Accra-Tema motorway requires reconstruction.
Totally?
Absolutely. That is my professional opinion. It requires, it's a 2-lane dual carriage. Now we would have to reconstruct and extend it maybe to 3 or 4 lanes, dual carriage. As at now, the concrete surface, a lot of damage has been caused. The driving quality is bad for people, and so it has outlived its span. A project that was undertaken in the 60s.
Yeah.
How many years ago? Maybe
and we just
50,
keep patching.
50 years ago,
Yeah.
yes. And most of these projects will have a lifespan of about 25, 30 years. So we need to carry out a major reconstruction. The reconstruction may not require the use of concrete surfacing. There are other materials. It can't just be ordinary asphalt that we can do a 4-lane on both sides of the dual carriage. Not only the Accra-Tema motorway, but the central corridor of our road network, Accra-Kumasi.
Okay, so you are not just looking at this corridor that we're talking about now. You want us to extend to the Ashanti region?
Yes, I mean, within that corridor.
Okay.
I mean, if you have traveled on the Accra-Kumasi road recently, you can see the deterioration. In fact, the portion between Pokuase and Insawem is terrible. And that, I know there's a contract on it, and so we can urge government and the contractor to speed up the rate of progress on that project. Not only that section, but almost the entire section from Accra to Kumasi requires some maintenance activity to be undertaken on. And then throughout the entire country, our road network, if you go to the hinterland, you'll notice that, yes, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work.
Okay.
Otherwise, if we leave it as it is now, for the next year, for the next 2 years, and when the rains come, some areas will be cut off.
You're saying that you'd be dealing with abandoned projects. There's one that's generating a lot of controversy, which has got to do with a matter of faith, because the president says it's his pledge to his maker, our God, to construct a national cathedral. That cathedral, I'm sure you've been to the site, you've seen the edifice, the plan, and what will go into it. It's becoming obvious that that project may not be completed next year or this year. Well, at least given what the president and the experts are telling us, they are targeting to finish by the end of his term. If that project runs into another administration and say you were president, what should we be doing about the National Cathedral?
I know the controversy surrounding the National Cathedral. Yes. The question is, what is the necessity for that project? You know, what is the necessity for that project? And people have, and of course I also agree that there are other infrastructure that we could also use to serve the same purpose for the purposes of national gathering. If it is for the religious faith, the Christian faith, we know that they all have their other edifices that they use to congregate and carry out their religious activities. So the fundamental question was, what is the necessity for that project?
Okay, we'll leave that question for the president to answer. And now, as we wrap up this conversation, there's the 9 others who are competing with you. I'll ask you your thoughts about who else will be better if you're not the one there. But let's deal with the date for the presidential primaries, because it's an issue that's come up within your party. Some want an early Congress, others feel, well, let's delay the process, let's have it by next year, so the candidates, of course, can collaborate with the president and work together to campaign vigorously in 2024. What's your take on this whole disagreement over the date?
Blessed, I think there should not be any hula baloo about the date for the conduct of this year's flag-bearer elections. In fact, the last competitive flag-bearer election was held in 2014, over 8 years ago, and this is now going to be the next one. The only reference we can make to, if the party is in government, when do we have the flag-bearer election? It's 2007, where it was held in December 2007. Clearly 11 months to the general elections of 2008. Right. So the party's constitution makes the provision that not later than 24 months.
Okay, that opening is there.
That opening is there. And then it narrows it that in case the party is in government, that opening, that time frame should not exceed 11 months to the next general elections. So for me, we are in February now. National Council has not decided when nominations should be open. The process may take 6 months. If it will take 6 months, granted that it opens in March.
Right.
So we add 6 months to 8, we are somewhere getting to September.
Right.
You know, if it doesn't open in March and it goes, yes. So there is no hula baloo for people to think that maybe what is the early Congress? Those who may be preaching or advocating for August, it is not possible. Okay. August is not possible unless we want to shorten the time process.
Filing, nomination,
yes, we want to shorten it. But we cannot do that. The reason is you need to allow people to have the time to traverse the length and breadth of this country in the 275 constituencies to go and talk to delegates. You are dealing with delegates of about 208,000. It's not a joke. It's not 20,000 or 50,000. 208,000 delegates. Where multimedia is situated is within the Ayawaso Central. Right. And delegates in Ayawaso Central may be around 1,300 or 1,400. And you need to reach out to them. Yeah. Then to talk about the other places or other constituencies.
So August may not.
So I foresee, this is my personal view, that it's possible you can have it in October, November, or December. But certainly I will not support going beyond December 2023.
We need to wrap up. There are 9 others. It's a general elections for within your party. Anything may happen. If Francis Addai-Nimoh is not elected flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, who else should?
Yeah, apart from Francis Addai-Nimoh, I don't have any name in mind. Is it? So I'm competing against my good self. So I mean that is what my answer would be. Apart from Francis Addai-Nimoh, I don't have anybody in mind.
So he says he's the best candidate for the New Patriotic Party, and obviously he'll be joining us once more before that contest here in studio to talk about how the campaign is going. But for now, I want to say a big thank you to Francis Addai-Nimoh, who's the presidential hopeful of the New Patriotic Party, for joining us.